Just as the country faces security threats on many fronts, among them, but the most serious, in the West Philippine Sea, General Romeo Brawner Jr. assumes command of the Armed Forces of the Philippines as its 60th Chief of Staff. The general, like his predecessors, vows to continue the AFP's modernization program and enhance ties with ally nations. After all, as the Commander-in-Chief keeps repeating, the country does not intend to cede even an inch of territory.
We are not moving LT-57 or the BRP Sierra Madre. It has been there since 1999. It is a permanent government post manned by our personnel from the AFP, and it is there as a haven for our fishermen who would go to the shoal, and it is used as a monitoring station also for safety at sea, and it is there for us to assert our sovereign rights, considering that it is within our exclusive economic zone.
Good evening, I'm Pia Hontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, Politics as Usual. Our special guest for tonight, Armed Forces of the Philippines Chief of Staff, General Romeo Brawner Jr. Good evening, General Brawner. Thank you very much for being here.
Yes, good evening, Ma'am Pia, and thank you for inviting me to your show.
General Brawner, just 2 weeks in office, and already this very first very big challenge, our Coast Guard escorting resupply vessels to the BRP Sierra Madre in Ayungin Shoal, and then getting water cannon by a Chinese Coast Guard vessel, and swarmed by so many other Chinese vessels. I understand, like you were explaining earlier, we did have Philippine Navy ships escorting those Coast Guard vessels also. Why don't we just have the Navy, the Navy vessels front and center?
Well, for one thing, once you enter the Ayungin Shoal, you will have to have smaller ships in order for these boats to approach the BRP 57 or the BRP Sierra Madre or the LS 57. So if we use our Navy boats, we will still have to anchor far from the Ayungin Shoal, and then use smaller boats to bring our supplies to the LS 57. So what we do is that from the very start, we already use the smaller boats to carry our supplies so that we could go directly to the LS 57.
Okay, because you know there were some observations na bakit hindi na lang ang humarap talaga yung Navy natin, hindi lang Coast Guard.
Yes.
Baga.
So in fact, during that resupply mission, we had Navy ships behind the Coast Guard ships, who were also behind the smaller boats that we used.
But of course, the Chinese Coast Guard, ang ginawa nila na water cannon, yung Coast Guard lang at yung resupply vessels.
Yes,
correct?
yes.
What would happen if they water cannoned a Philippine Navy vessel? What does that amount to?
Well, that would be a totally different story, because it means that you are already doing aggressive actions against a military ship, and that could be interpreted as an act of war already.
Okay, so in other words, that could start a shooting war, which is
Yes.
something we don't want to happen.
Yes.
However, you don't think that the Chinese Coast Guard would do that, right? They know that if
They know
they
that.
water cannon
Yes.
or point a laser, a military-grade laser at a Philippine Navy ship, that is an act of war.
Yes. So in fact, the reason why we believe they use their Chinese Coast Guard ships is because of that. They want to act short of war, short of declaring war. So all of these actions are considered actions in the gray zone, meaning they're not really overt acts of war, but lower than that.
Okay, so what zone? Gray zone? Kung hindi act of war yan, ano yan? Act of
Well, these are coercions.
coercion?
Yes.
Okay. Gray zone. Kanina, Di ba, you're talking about Coast Guard vessels. The Coast Guard vessels are white
Yes.
ships. The Navy vessels are gray ships. You would never see Chinese Navy, People's Liberation Army Navy, and Philippine Navy ships head to head.
Well, we learned our lesson in the past. We almost had a shooting war.
This was in 2012, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we learned our lesson from that. And also, I think the Chinese also learned their lesson from that. And so now, they push to the front the Chinese Coast Guard ships and also their militia ships.
Okay. What was that incident in one sentence? Can you describe what happened?
Well, our Navy ships were of course they were patrolling the area. There were some Chinese fishing vessels that were actually doing some illegal fishing in the area, and so our Navy ships accosted the Chinese fishing vessels, and then the Chinese Navy ships came to their rescue. So there was almost almost a shooting war, but we're glad that it did not happen.
Did one side board the other side's ship?
Yes, so our Navy boarded the fishing vessels of the Chinese.
And that's something we don't want to happen again. What is the intelligence on these Chinese Coast Guard ships, General Brawner? Are they really Chinese Coast Guard? Are they really white ships, or are they actually gray ships just painted white?
We do have intelligence, but
Yeah.
of course we cannot really divulge the intelligence information.
So our suspicion is as good as yours.
Yes.
Okay. Would it be a good time to have those joint patrols with the U.S. Navy in the West Philippine Sea?
Well, of course, we believe in freedom of navigation, and of course, we do have bilateral ties and even multilateral ties with our allies and partners, with like-minded countries. So, joint patrols are, in fact, one of the activities that are done normally by like-minded nations. So it's not just the Philippines and the U.S. You also have other nations doing joint patrols, like the U.S. and Japan, or Australia and the U.S., and so on. So it's a normal occurrence in the high seas.
I understand you're ironing out the details for that. When is that going to happen?
We still don't have the exact date on when.
Do we have an exact month? Like, is it going to be this August or September, or at least before the end of the year?
No, we also don't have.
Or you can't say that it's going to happen before the end of this year?
We can't say that as of now.
Okay. Nasa tama naman po tayo, no, General Brawner. We are in the right, correct?
Yes. Yes.
A Union Shoal is well within the country's exclusive economic zone,
That's
200
right.
nautical miles from our shoreline.
Yes.
And therefore, we are not moving the BRP Sierra Madre, no matter what the Chinese say.
Definitely, we are not leaving a union. We are not going to tow our ship that's in a Union Shoal. And the most important thing there is that that ship is a commissioned ship of the Philippine Navy. We have Philippine soldiers on board, and therefore, it is our obligation, it is our right to bring supplies to these soldiers on board BRP Sierra Madre. And it's also our obligation to rotate our personnel.
We'll be back after this very quick break. General Romeo Brawner, the new AFP Chief of Staff, is with us tonight. Stay tuned.
Yung BRP Sierra Madre LS-57 is a symbol of Philippine sovereignty over that area. Kahit magpatintero tayo araw-araw, we will continue to support and supply our troops.
If China is talking about a legally enforceable agreement, because apparently that's what they are That's what they're pertaining to. A commitment that's legally binding. Then we challenge them, produce that written document.
Welcome back. This is Politics as usual. Our guest, still with us, AFP Chief of Staff General Romeo Brawner Jr. General Brawner, do we have any plans na magdagdag ng Navy ships doon sa may Ayungin Shoal, West Philippine Sea, any part of that?
Well, right now we don't have any plans of adding more ships that we're going to moor at the Ayungin Shoal. So, but
Well, why
definitely
not? Not a good plan
not
because
a good plan.
Because?
Because definitely we will need all of our ships to be able to sail our seas, and we don't have enough ships. So,
Okay. So there is no decrepit Philippine Navy vessel around that needs to go to the junkyard that can be... walang ganon.
oh no, we don't have any plans of doing that, ma'am.
Okay. Also, General, dahil sa nangyari, lumitaw nga sa Senado na meron tayong parang exchange program, a study program for AFP officers and even PMA cadets in Beijing. Is that actually happening?
It's not totally accurate, but the basis of this is that in 2004, we signed a memorandum of understanding on defense cooperation with China. So this allows us to send our officers to study in their schools, in their military schools, and we can also send officers for training and exercises.
Okay.
But as to the cadets, there are no cadets being sent to China, and we never sent any cadets to train in China, except for some instances when the Chinese government invited several cadets for an exchange for a few days, just for 1 week.
Okay. All right. So nothing like sending a PMA cadet to, say, West Point, U.S. military
no, it's
academy.
not like
Hindi.
that.
Yung
So
4
right
years,
now,
no.
we only send cadets to 4 countries. That's the United States, Australia, Japan, and South Korea.
Okay. Ang Coast Guard, they're acquiring this 432 million pesos state-of-the-art satellite data communication system under Japan's official development assistance. This is expected to improve their maritime domain awareness, law enforcement capabilities. I mentioned that because I wanted to segue to the AFP modernization program, which is so important. You're about to get a much-needed shot. No? There's a bigger slice of the pie of the budget for 2024. Where will this go in terms of what's known as the first, second, and third horizons of the AFP modernization program?
Yeah, so we have 3 horizons for our modernization program. The first horizon was focused mainly on counterterrorism and internal security. The second horizon is focused on defending our territory on the western seaboard, on the western side of our country. And the Horizon 3 is aimed at being able to develop our capability of defending the whole country, the entire archipelago. So because of that, when we designed our modernization program, we envisioned an armed forces of the Philippines that would be able to project our forces outside our territory. Meaning we will need planes, multi-role fighters, we will need more ships, and probably if we can have submarines, that would be very good. Inland, of course, we will have to defend our important facilities. So we will have to have air defense systems, and then shore-based missile systems and the like.
Okay. In other words, General Brawner, what you want to happen is any self-respecting nation needs a credible defense posture, and that's why you have your Air Force first line of defense. That's why you're talking about multi-role fighter
That's right.
jets, your Navy, more ships, hopefully even submarines, and then the Army. When we talk about the Army, we're moving towards territorial defense already, no?
Yes.
Para bang paalis na doon tayo doon sa internal security operations.
Yes, paalis na tayo because we believe that by the end of the year, we will be able to achieve total victory against the communist terrorist group and the local terrorist groups.
By the end of the year.
Yes, by the end of the
Total
year.
victory already.
Total victory, yes. But of course, we will not be able to achieve zero or total annihilation, but at least they will not be able to launch attacks anymore. They will not be able to, get this taxation from the people and so on.
Okay. So, and in other words, this is a spent force? Is the New People's Army a spent force already as far as you're concerned? Of course, your answer, they will say that yung sagot nyo will be propaganda for the armed forces.
No, but the records and the numbers would prove this point. So from a high of 25,000 fighters in the late 80s, now they're down to less than 2,000 fighters.
2,000. All right. We're going to take one last quick break. More from our guest, General Romeo Brawner, the new Armed Forces Chief, when we return. This is Politics as Usual.
The use of the water cannon cannot be considered as an armed attack. It is normally used for fire extinguishing. So we leave it at that. But if you ask what is happening when Coast Guard patrols the seas, we have never seen any incident that happened with Coast Guard vessels.
You're still on Politics as Usual. I interviewed General Brawner for the very first time, a very long time ago. He was a third-class cadet at the Academy, and that was 1987. And we have pictures of that. Or was that 1986? And you were a plebe at that time.
1986.
1986.
Yes.
Plebo.
Plebo.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And now, here you are, Armed Forces Chief of Staff. General Brawner, it's every PMA cadet's dream, no? And to one day become Chief of Staff, and it was yours too, I suppose, while in the PMA?
Well, not really, ma'am.
Not really?
Yes,
Okay.
not really. Because
Para bang you were just happy na mag-general lang ako, or ganon?
yes, I was just happy to graduate and be able to serve. So yun lang. But my sights wasn't really set
Kasi
that
yes.
high. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. But is it also a dream? Well, you just said no. Your sights weren't really set on that. Pero as you went up the ranks, went up through the ranks, were you thinking of that? There's always that chance.
There's a chance, yes. but,
One in 100 or 1,000 chance.
Yes, ma'am. But of course, my focus then was on the current job that I had. So I just tried to do the best that I could in the current position that I had.
Okay, so you never really aspired for it ba? Or did you, at times, feel like, baka pwede pa ako mag-CS nito? And then, was there any point, any moment in time na you told yourself, naku, hindi na ako magsi-CS?
Yes, ma'am. Oo. Of course, there were several ups and downs in my career and in everyone's career. So sometimes, nadi-discourage kami, and so it wasn't really that I wanted really that badly to be, the Chief of Staff. I just whatever comes, whatever God gives me, then I'll be happy with that.
Pero naalala ko maugong ang pangalan mo nung nagpiping-pong no? Andy Centino to Bob Bacaro to Andy Centino. Remember that?
Yes.
Yung pangalan mo.
Oo.
But the law says the tenure of the Chief of Staff is 3 years, no? So it's either hanggang July 2026 ka, or and I can hear a collective moan ng mga underclass mo. Hello, PMA class 1990, 91, and 92. Or you'll be retired when you turn 56, March 18 next year.
Well, it's really up to the President. Under the new law, I would have a maximum tenure of 3 years, but the President has a prerogative to replace the Chief of Staff anytime when he decides so.
Of course, presidential prerogative. But what did he tell you? What did President Marcos tell you when he appointed you?
Well, there was no specific timeline that he gave me. He just said that I should try to do the best that I could as the Chief of Staff.
Okay, so you're prepared to serve for either 8 months or 3 years?
Yes,
Whichever.
yes.
All right. Final words, General Brawner?
Well, thank you for inviting me to your show. This is indeed an honor for me to be here once again. But this is indeed a very challenging role that I have now. What's important is that we are united as an armed forces of the Philippines. That's why in my assumption speech, I called on all the members of the armed forces to remain professional and solid behind our president and in support of our constitution. But I also emphasize that it's not just the military that should be concerned about our security, but it should be all of us, because security is a collective responsibility. So even with what's happening now at the West Philippine Sea and what could happen in the future, we all need to contribute our efforts. All of us Filipinos.
General Romeo Brawner Jr., Chief of Staff, the Armed Forces. Sir, thank you very much for being with us tonight
Thank you,
on
ma'am.
the show. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or the family reunion or in Viber groups and risk warfare, digital or otherwise. But we can talk about it here at this table on this show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Hontiveros. See you back here next Wednesday, 8 p.m.
Sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil.
Never
yun
shall
yung-
invaders
Yes.
trample our sacred shores.